Yo guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Jacob Estep. If you haven't been here around a lot, I do photography, videography, tutorials, how-tos, and explanations of things, all related to cameras and video. That's everything I do. Cameras, video, pictures, you name it. If it uses a camera, to an extent, I'm pretty much there. So welcome back to today's video. So an image is a very common form of communication in today's world. But what really makes up an image? There's JPEGs that you text people, but then there's also this term of raw photos. What does it mean? What's the differences? What's the benefits? How does it affect photos, editing, sharing, and all of that? Today, we're gonna get into that, so let's get going. Okay, so to begin with, we need to kind of discern what a photo is. So in its simplest terms, what is a photo? Well, a photo is a digital representation of something in the real world. Pretty simple, right? But what makes up a photo? Well, that's where stuff starts getting a little more complicated. A photo is composed of pixels, which are basically little squares of light-sensitive technology that once you combine them all, it generates an image of what you saw, but digitally. Wikipedia phrases it this way: an image is a representation of the external for a person or thing made in art. Photography is art, videography is art. So these formats are just digital representations of the real world in an art form. Wikipedia goes on further to say, it is an artifact that depicts visual representation is that which resembles a subject, usually a physical object. Now we can take photos of things that don't technically exist, like infrared light, something we can't physically see, but for a simpler term for the sake of this video and this conversation, we're going to say physical things. So, for example, this mouse. I can take a photo of it, it's a physical object. So that's what a photo is. But what about like a digital image? That's different, right? You'd be right, it is. Wikipedia phrases it this way: a digital image is an image composed of picture elements known as pixels. And I went into a minute ago what a pixel is and just how the pixels create the image. So back to the original question, raw versus JPEG. What's the difference? What are these? What's a raw image? Don't I just take a picture and that's the image? Well, raw and JPEG are actually very different. A JPEG image has a limited number of data points in the file, whereas a raw has also a limited but a much greater limited number of data points per file. To put it another way, each data point can collect a certain amount of light and a certain amount of colors for both RAW and JPEG. So if we take a JPEG image, each file can represent, doesn't matter how big the file is, each JPEG file can represent 16 million colors. 16 million. Now, a raw image, doesn't matter what kind of camera it's from, if it is a raw file, it can produce up to 4.3 billion colors. Yeah, kind of crazy. So that's the biggest difference, one huge difference between raw and JPEG. One can show off billions of colors, one can't even hit 20 million. It's a pretty big difference, isn't it? So what's the benefits of 4.3 billion different colors? Flexibility. If you take a JPEG image and attempt to edit it, say on your iPhone, and you go and you look at the image in the Photos app, you go through the edit, you try and edit it. Some areas are going to get blown out, some are going to become oversaturated, some the blacks are going to be crushed, as in so dark you can't see any detail, and others are going to be so blown out it's white, and again, no detail. What RAW allows you to do is, since it's able to pull in billions of colors and all these data points, and it doesn't delete anything that the camera catches, you can pull back some of these data points and recreate part of the images you wouldn't normally see or that have disappeared. What else is RAW super efficient and helpful with? Scaling. Think of scaling as blowing up. Think of a photocopier. If I look at an image on, say, my iPad, and I print it, it's going to upscale it to a 9 by 13 or 11.5 by 13, whatever it is, piece of paper, or however big I choose to print it. A JPEG has a finite size of how big you can blow it up. Contrarily, a RAW image, with all the data it has kept data that allows you to scale it virtually infinitely. It can take the math, actually, that's built into the image and scale it. So I keep saying scale it. So what does that really mean? Well, if we have an image that has a blue square that's 18 pixels by 2 pixels, that's what? That's 36 pixels, right? And so it's a very thin line of pixels. And so if it's a JPEG, when you stretch it, it's just going to take those pixels and spread them out over a bigger and bigger area. Now a RAW image, when you scale it up, it will, to an extent, you'll have to do some editing still, but it will do something that is known as vectorizing. I'm not going to go into the whole science of vectorizing, don't worry. But basically that is where it takes the mathematical equation that says, okay, this is how many pixels is in each area of the picture, and blowing it up and keeping everything proportional but crisp. Fascinating to watch. Maybe I'll do another video on that sometime. Drop a like if you think I should. If you click up the link in the iCard, actually, I have that linked to a video talking about pixels and JPEG versus RAW that goes into a little more detail if you want to get into a little more detail or a little more simplified. I'll put 2 videos up there. So check them out. Great people who do those videos. Not me, but I know some other people who do some insanely good videos. So check those out in the iCard. So let's go back to the simplest form. An image is a digital file taken from a camera, be it a smartphone, be it a point and shoot, be it a tablet, smartwatch, computer webcam, anything. An image is a data file representing the world taken from a camera. So what, in simplest form, is a RAW image? Think of a camera. You look through the lens, you see the picture you want to capture. Your camera's like, oh, okay, here's the scene, I'm gonna take it, keep what's important, get rid of the rest. That's the simplest way to explain what a JPEG is, because that's what it does. It looks at the scene, captures what it thinks is necessary, gets rid of the rest completely. Now a RAW image, the camera's like, okay, this person knows what they're doing, I'm just going to look at the scene, optimize it a little bit depending on the camera you use, capture everything I possibly can see, and just give that to them, so they can edit it or manipulate it later. I won't go into too much detail about how this happens, but it does. So a RAW image takes everything it can possibly take from the sensor, writes it to your storage device. And again, what benefits? Well, I mentioned it allows you to manipulate your image. I mentioned it allows you to scale your image bigger or smaller. But what else? Well, when it's capturing everything for editability, if you have an area that's super dark, like in one corner of the shot, depending on how poorly lit your room was, you may be able to pull some detail back from that image. And the bigger the sensor on your camera, the more detail you'll be able to pull back. RAW is a very space-consuming file type and file size, so if you want to shoot RAW, make sure you have the room on your computer or phone or tablet, and you have big enough SD cards or storage, whatever storage device your camera uses, so that you can save these files. Because they, on average, a JPEG on average is 4.3 to 10 megabytes. A RAW starts at 10, and I've seen them go upwards of 60 megabytes. So tons bigger, tons slower to write and read depending on the speed. So you have to take these things into consideration when you're thinking about photography and cameras. But what does this matter if you just want to post on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook for your friends to see? Well, if you're just going to open up Instagram and have a photo from your camera roll, slap on a quick filter, and post it, then you don't need to shoot RAW. However, and actually that goes for all social medias, mainstream social media. However, if you want to start going into more photography-based things, whether it be 500 pics or just some professional photo sharing site or feed, then having the ability to shoot raw and edit more will allow you the freedom, like I've said, the freedom to manipulate your image. If you want more leeway to be creative, if you want to manipulate, I keep saying that word, but it's so true. If you want leeway to edit your image, change how it looks stylistically or how it actually looked in real life, but the camera didn't quite capture that, then RAW will allow you to edit it back to what it truly looked like originally for you when you took the photo. Great, so now we know a little bit about RAW and JPEG, but what about file names? There's so many weird ones. I have so many weird ones on my computer right now, actually. Each camera company, each camera manufacturer, when their camera takes an image in RAW, not JPEG, in RAW, each camera company puts a different extension on it. So Canon puts .cr2, Panasonic puts .rw2, Fujifilm puts RAF, and GoPro RAW, yes, they can shoot RAW, is GRP. Now, if you take a RAW image on a smartphone, it's going to say .dng, digital negative. Yeah, digital negative. The G is part of negative. So each one of these file types and names is something that comes with each camera, actually. All smartphones do shoot .dng. However, every other true camera manufacturer will have a different file name and file organization style. For the sake of this video, however, I'm going to be talking about DNG, which is smartphone RAW, Panasonic RAW, which is .rw2, and GoPro RAW, which is .grp. Because these are some that a lot of people will be working with. And for me, I shoot Panasonic, I shoot GoPro, I shoot phone. So those are my 3 file types. So, should you be shooting RAW? Well, that's a question only you can answer. However, I would encourage you to play around with the idea of shooting RAW, seeing what you can do, experiencing it, learning, that's the key thing, learning, and just seeing if you like the idea of shooting RAW, if you need that editability. Not everyone does. Not everyone doesn't. So play around. Why not? I'll link a couple things below. I will link an app that allows you to shoot RAW on a phone if you don't have an iPhone 12 or newer. I will also link below Polar, which is a quick, intuitive, easy to use, free application, no subscription needed, to edit photos, so you can see the difference of editing a JPEG versus a RAW. I think that'll really help you when you're looking at the differences. So I'll link those 2 things below. Mix and match. You don't always have to shoot RAW. You don't always have to shoot JPEG. On the iPhone 12 and newer, actually, if you go into photo settings on an iPhone 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max and iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, you can go into the camera settings and actually toggle on a RAW switch. So then when you're in the photo app, the camera application, pardon me, you can toggle it on and off right up in the right hand corner. Because with how much more file size, how much bigger these file sizes are and how much more space they use, you don't always need to be shooting RAW. You don't always not need to be shooting RAW. Play around with it. See what you need. Find out a workflow that works for you. In the future, I'll do a full video talking about editing a RAW image versus editing a JPEG. But for now, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, be sure to hit that like button, maybe the subscribe button too, why not, be crazy. Leave your comments below if you found this video helpful, if you want to see other videos like this, or any suggestions you have. Be sure to follow me on all my social media, links are below, and also be sure to check out my website. A lot of stuff is being changed there, a lot of new updates, Christmas is coming, and I am going to be putting up some pretty awesome stuff soon. Some new series, some new stuff that's never been seen before, whole 9 yards, it's on the way. So that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, stay creative, get out there and take pictures. Take it easy. Peace.